Chair, the mics are hot.
Welcome. I'd like to call the March 19th, 2019 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order. We'll start with roll call. Starting to my left,
Hodge Patel.
Brenda Hamstead.
Todd Chernick.
Jason Cole.
For the record, it's note that Kim Keller, Ken Sisson, and Don Kurt are not in attendance. We do have quorum with 4, however. If you'd all please join us and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to, in reviewing our agenda, I'd like to propose an amendment to our agenda for this evening. And I'll need a second to do this. It's item number 10, new business. I'd propose that we move our election of chair and vice chair for 2019 until our next scheduled meeting. That way we have more participation and voting and discussion.
Second.
You have a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion to amend passed unanimous.
Mr. Chair, just so you know, next month there is no BZA on the calendar.
Okay,
Next month.
so I just said next scheduled.
The next schedule.
I'd make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion to approve the amended agenda passes unanimous. Item number 5 on our agenda is approval of our October meeting minutes. So that's quite a ways back. We've had good fortune of not having many cases. I'll make a motion to approve the October meeting minutes as published by the city.
Second.
Second from Brenda. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the October meeting minutes say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passed unanimous. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial board comprised of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determination. With regard to decisions on primary variances, the board's basis for decision is provided by these 4 considerations. Relief, if granted, would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. And B, there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And C, relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good in surrounding properties. And D, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and that substantial justice is done. Tonight we also have a sign variance, and the considerations for the sign variance: relief only to the sign ordinance may be granted where existing foliage or structures bring about a hardship whereby a sign meeting minimum letter size, square footage, and height requirements cannot be read from an adjoining public road. Item number 6 on our agenda is public comment. Now, this is not public comments. Well, it's public comment. If there's anyone here who wishes to speak in terms of general public comment, you will have to fill out a yellow card.
We do not have any cards for public general comment.
All right, thank you, Robin. So we'll move on to our cases for this evening, which is starting with case V19-001, 13725 Providence Road. And I'd ask staff to please present.
Okay, good evening. As it was sounded, this is V19-001. It's a request to allow remodeling in addition to existing residents in the 50-foot stream buffer and 75-foot impervious setback, Section 20-426, 1.2. Also to allow a pool inside of the 50-foot stream buffer and 75-foot impervious setback, Section 20-426, 1.2. This site is a 6.4 acre lot located on the corner of Providence Road and Cowart Road. It is zoned AG1 and is located within the rural Milton overlay. The property includes an existing single-family home and outbuildings. The applicant proposes to remodel, make additions to the existing house, construct a new pool and pool house, and remove the outbuildings. The existing house is currently located in the state 25-foot buffer and 50-foot stream buffer. The renovations and addition of the house will have the house in the 50-foot stream buffer and 75-foot impervious setback. The barn is currently located in the 75-foot impervious setback, which is proposed to be removed. The applicant is also proposing to install a pool and pool house in the 50-foot stream buffer and 75-foot impervious setback. Section 20-426(1) states that an undisturbed natural vegetative buffer shall be maintained for 50 feet measured horizontally. Part 2 states an additional setback shall be maintained for 25 feet beyond the undisturbed natural vegetative buffer, in which all impervious cover shall be prohibited. Grading, filling, and earth moving shall be minimized within the setback. Since the applicant proposes to remodel, make an addition to the existing home, construct a new pool and pool house, and remove the outbuildings that encroaches into the 75-foot impervious setback and into the 50-foot stream buffer, a two-part variance is required. In regards to the comments from the Design Review Board on March 5th of this year, the DRB offered the following comment. Location of proposed driveway is dangerous. In regards to staff comments or department comments, staff site plan review, it states move the pool to the 75-foot impervious setback. Also, the arborist stated the proposed addition and garage will take down a specimen tree. In regards to transportation, they stated move the driveway to Providence Road because proposed driveway is in the radius for Cowart Road. Stormwater, new finished floor elevation must be 3 feet above floodplain, cannot fill or grade in the floodplain. Standards for consideration, as the chairman read earlier, and the applicant has stated their response in the letter of appeal that has been included in your packet. The staff's response are the following. The intent of the ordinance is to protect the health of the stream. The applicant is proposing to add impervious surface with the house addition, pool house, and pool, which will impact the stream negatively and not support the intent of the ordinance. Secondly, the house was originally built before the 50-foot buffer and 75-foot impervious setback were in place. The proposed areas for house addition, pool, and pool house does not demonstrate extraordinary and exceptional situations pertaining to this property. In addition, the need for the variances are self-imposed, except for the renovation of the existing house with no proposed additions. Thirdly, the proposed renovation and construction will be in the 75-foot impervious setback and 50-foot stream buffer and will cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And lastly, the proposed addition to the house, additional structures and pool, the public safety, health, and welfare is not secured and substantial justice is not done. Staff recommendation is denial for these requests. If the board's chooses to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. Move the pool to be in the 75-foot impervious setback. 2, work with the transportation engineer to field a suitable location of new driveway. 3, cannot do any work inside the floodplain. And lastly, proposed house needs to be the same size and location of the existing house in the 50-foot stream buffer. And with that, that's the staff's report.
Are there any questions for staff? I do have one question. In terms of the staff stormwater response, can you help us understand, and the public as well, what is meant by new finished floor elevation must be 3 feet above floodplain. What is finished floor?
You want to speak to it?
The finished floor would be the level of the first floor of the house.
Okay, not the basement.
Well, no, it would include the basement if they do a basement. It would have to stay above floodplain.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Are there other questions for
Are the
staff?
recommendations that you're making, are they possible on this property?
I think that's directed to you, Bob.
I'm just looking at each one of
Move the
them.
pool to
Yes,
be-
all of them
Well,
are
I think you
possible
said
on this
that,
on this
moving the
property.
pool out of the 75-foot was one of the recommendations, correct?
Well,
Well,
no, the
and-
pool right now is currently proposed in the 50,
Right.
between the 50 and 75, so it's within the 50-foot buffer.
So the proposed, if you want to approve it, would be in the 25-foot non-impervious, because I believe usually in the past, when the board has approved a pool, it has all typically been in that last 25 feet of non-impervious.
Right.
Are there other conditions that you're concerned or wanted to know if were feasible?
No. Have you seen the new proposal for the new home?
We haven't seen floor plans, but we're seeing the site plan
Okay.
of where it is.
It's in here. Any other questions for staff?
Bob, in the site plan or in any other documents that you've seen, has there been any mention of a basement at all on that property, on this property?
No, not, whatever's existing, they'll maintain. And then they did not speak, maybe the applicant will speak about that, but he hasn't told us anything about a basement in that 75.
Oh, I see.
The addition's proposed in the 75 area.
Okay, any other questions for staff before we ask the applicant to present? Mr. Reese, if you'd care to present.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Scott Reese with Brummer Reese and Associates, doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia 30004. I'm here tonight representing John Gaston in his application for the variance to reconstruct the residence on the property that he purchased there, Providence Road. So Mr. Gaston purchased 13725 Providence Road, 6.4 acres with an existing house and outbuildings that was constructed in the 1960s when there were no stream buffers or setbacks. At that time, the stream banks were compromised and have been so continuously until now. Mr. Gaston is planning to remodel and add on to the existing residence. This addition will be inside the 75-foot impervious setback, which requires a variance. Mr. Gaston would also like to construct a pool on the property, which he would like to lie inside the 50-foot buffer, also requiring a variance. We have applied for and have been granted a demolition permit to remove impervious areas that are now existing. The removal of these existing impervious areas, so the removal and then the addition creates a net loss of impervious area. So if you approve what we're asking for, there will be less impervious area in the setbacks than now exists. So to address the public good, if approved, and the demolition of the existing driveway, the barn and outbuildings there, and we construct as proposed on the site plan, there will be less impervious area in the constrained area, i.e. the buffers and the setback, than now exist. So, in our opinion, since the purpose of the ordinance is to filter the runoff before it goes to the stream, and it needs pervious surface to do that, we will now have more pervious surface than is existing. So the hardship is it's an existing residence. We're adding on to the existing residence. The location of the existing residence is within the 50 and 75-foot setback. To add on, we have to go in, we can't add on to a structure that's there and move it outside. Mr. Gaston has told me that after we've discussed the pool house, he's done, that he doesn't need the pool house. He would like to have the pool, but that is not a deal killer by any stretch. So if you so desire, we can work around the pool. It would be his preference that it would be allowed inside. Once again, we feel like since we're reducing the amount of impervious area, that there is no public harm involved in lessening the impervious area. So that being said, I've got site plans, demolition plans, anything you'd like to see, I can bring up on the screen. The hardship is the existing house, the location of it. The configuration of the lot is such that if we go close to the corner, we lose any buildable area, and that is also our reserve septic system area. So if you're standing at the road, looking at the house, that left-hand side is where our reserve septic system needs to go. So we can't build in that area with the structures. So that's where we're at. We feel like we have a demonstrated hardship. We feel like the public good will not be harmed. The stream buffers have already been compromised. We're lessening that effect on that with the new construction. So if you have any questions, I would be glad to try to answer them. Once again, please note that we're not asking for the pool house. So you can go ahead and remove it. And please think of it as a two-part, the addition of the house and then the pool is separately. So if you have a real problem with the pool, we can work around that. We can't work around detaching the house from the existing structure. Floodplain, it is not FEMA floodplain, which is dictated, but it is future Milton floodplain. But any construction will be 3 feet above that 100-year flood elevation.
Is it possible for us to put the site plan on the screen for the public in particular?
Do you have it up?
I'm going to try.
Okay. Let's see if we can get that up there.
Is that good, or does it need to be?
No, that's good. You want to enlarge it?
Can we zoom a little bit more?
Zoom in a little
This
bit.
is what appears to be a large lot, but I think you can see it's narrow. And I do have a couple questions pertaining to this. That's why I wanted to bring this up.
Okay. Is that, or do you?
I think that's sufficient.
Okay. This area that's where we're talking about this constraint as far as your front setback and your rear setback, how it narrows down as you go towards this corner. And this is the area that we have tested because, the areas between the streams are not suitable for the septic.
So my question is, I have a couple. One is, did you consider, and is it more feasible with less impact, to make this with the existing structure and more of a hockey stick build out into the outside of the impervious area? So towards that specimen tree. We worked in there. We're trying to save that specimen tree. It looks like the proposed garage.
No, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the other one there. The architectural design just really didn't work for that. And we also need that area beside the driveway turnaround here for our reserve septic system to get our sufficient linear feed in.
And related to that, in trying to move more of these structures out of the buffers, there was concern mentioned regarding the driveway and its egress at the corner of Cowart and Providence.
Yes, we will, we understand that we have to meet with Roddy Moats with the city. Well, this was a proposal. This was where the client's first preference was. If approved, we will go through the full site plan process. At that time, we will meet with Roddy out on the site with site distance parameters to work out. There is some topography concerns in there if you pull out. The existing driveways are extremely dangerous. So we will have to work with the city to find the best. So that's not in stone. That is his preference, but I have shared that with him, and he is fully aware that the location of the driveway will be contingent upon meeting with the city staff and determining the best location.
So the primary, and I think this is my last, there's two questions. Is there a basement involved in this project? You heard us questioning that.
The existing residence has a basement. So, but the addition, the plans I have seen does not show a basement to it. But if you'll look, each one of those contour lines represents 2 feet. So it would definitely be way above any floodplain there.
The existing basement is in conformance,
the existing,
it's a half basement as best I can tell.
yeah, it's there just on the end. This, Captain Lipscomb constructed the house, and then it was a dog training facility for a small period of time. That didn't really work out. But we understand from an engineering standpoint that any living space of the residence has to be a minimum 3 feet above the 100-year flood elevation. So it will, and that will be fully addressed at the site plan time. That's a hard and fast rule.
Okay. And then regarding the septic, can you be a little more specific where the primary and the reserve locations are?
The primary that's existing, and we have met with Fulton County Health Department and have approval, is if you're looking, it would be, if you're looking at the site plan standing at Providence Road, looking at the residence, it is on the right side of the stream. So it is
I see the solid pipe there. You've got noted as solid pipe to septic.
Okay, that is, yes. So there's a pump chamber that's listed, and that solid pipe is pumped across all of the wet area to that L or the shape over to the long part of the lot. So the septic field is over there. The initial that's existing, and it was installed in conjunction with the dog boarding facility. So it is, the health department has very good records of where it is. We met Richard Campbell with the sanitarian out there. So that is where it is, and it is sized sufficiently for what we're proposing. So it will stay where it is. And then the reserve system is proposed, as we discussed, on the left-hand side. And we submitted.
Do you believe that septic field as it exists now is 50 to 60 years old?
No. It is less than 5 years old.
Okay. Just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, did I state it was?
No, one would
I'm
assume, though, since
The house was. But, okay, so there was a intermediary purchaser, and they were running a kennel, dog boarding, grooming facility there. Those are anathema to septic systems because of hair and other situations. The existing 50-year-old system failed. So 2 years ago, 3 years ago, a whole new system was So that pump chamber, those were not 50-year-old, you were gravity only. So that system it's less than 5 years old.
Any others with questions to the applicant?
Do you have plans of the home to be renovated, built, any additions that we can see?
I did not bring them. I mean, I was not given elevations. I was given this footprint, so it is. But as far as elevations, no, I'm not. I haven't been given that.
So it's 2,100 square feet, the home that's there right now. So
The existing.
Right, the existing. So the new home will have that same footprint, stay in the same location, size, and
So that existing will stay exactly as is. And then we're proposing, as you see on the site plan, the house addition. I lost my,
Yeah, we'll go back.
so this, where the hand is a house addition that we're proposing, and I can tell you that is a footprint of 840 square feet.
is it basement and 2 levels above ground, or is it
That
just
is
one
the,
story?
that is the footprint, meaning the exterior of what you see. But
Right.
the multiple levels, I'm sorry, I can't, I don't know the full extent of that. I have not been given elevations. I was given a footprint of the proposed addition. So, I mean, the concern was the amount of impervious area coverage, not the square footage of the heated space in this particular case. I've never encountered that in this particular situation when we're working about a buffer. It's always been the footprint. And I apologize. I did not anticipate the square footage of that addition to be.
That's
an
all
issue.
right. I was just curious.
Yeah, I mean, it is at its closest point, 40-foot build line off the road. So I think it's a legitimate question because it would have an impact aesthetically being that close to the road if it is a significantly
The
tall structure.
garage.
No, the existing home, if it was turned from a ranch to a 2-story, that will have a different aesthetic impact to the rural view shed.
Yes, and I'm sorry. Bob, if you,
I have not seen any plans for this.
I mean, I know Mr. Gaston had discussed some stuff with you, but I have not seen any elevations on that. And sometimes I know that until they know how far they're in, they don't pay the full architectural designs for a finished product on something they don't know if they're going to get approved. But I apologize, but I do not have that information.
Are there other questions for the applicant?
Is there a plan, or what's his plan for the long piece of property behind the stream buffer?
As of now, I don't know.
But, I mean, it looks like you could come in on the lower corner off Providence, right, and put a driveway in with
Yes.
out of the stream buffer.
And come,
So
well,
it could be usable property, is my.
yeah, so that,
And
so
here's my
you
point to
could,
that. If the front house really becomes useless if you can't renovate it.
yes.
I mean,
then
there's
it's,
really no area you can go up front.
yeah,
and not be in
if that's
violation.
denied, that whole side of the property is
Right.
rendered useless. And then you're left with that area over there to try to have any use of your property.
But so you know full well, what I'm personally struggling with, I imagine the board is considering is item B of our considerations and the unique size, shape, and topography and the self-imposed nature of this. So that's why we're trying to vet this.
And I get, if there was no structure here that we were trying to use, then I would have been a lot more hesitant and pushed my applicant to an alternative. But since the structure is there, the compromising or the encroachment into the buffer is an existing thing. And we're trying, if you negate the pool and the pool house, we're staying outside of the buffer. We are in the impervious setback, but we're removing more impervious areas that are pre-existing. Once we remove those and add back, there's going to be less impact, i.e. impervious structures or surface area than exist now. So, that was when the applicant first came to me and was proposing, I've purchased this property, this is what I want to do. And, most citizens have no idea about buffers and setbacks and the impact. They see a beautiful piece of property with a house, and they see this stream where the previous owner built cascades in the stream, and this is my dream. I want to build here. And then I come in, he sits down with me, and I go through the negatives, and no, you can't do that. Why? Well, these are the ordinances, and we go through. And we try to come up with a plan that is the least intrusive in this. The existing house is the existing house, and trying to, use that footprint and add on kind of limits what we could do. So.
Understood. Any other questions for the applicant?
You had mentioned there was a existing barn that was
Yes,
secured a
it's
permit for. Can you show us where on the site plan exactly that is?
okay. Where's my close on this one? There.
You could probably open that site plan again and
I
just use your
have
cursor.
let's see what this is. Okay.
Yeah, there you
Oh,
go.
that's better.
Here is the barn. I'm calling this a barn. This is a greenhouse. This is a tractor shed. This is a paved driveway. So we are proposing to remove this paved driveway, remove this structure, and this structure. So there's 434 square feet inside the setback there. There's 932 square feet in the driveway. There's 200 and I think that's 98. So when we do the addition or the subtraction, and then when we add it back, so we have an existing of 932 square feet of existing surface area inside the combination of the 75-foot and the 50-foot. We are proposing 760, including the pool, but which is a 28 loss. If you negate that, there will be 458 square feet less impervious area than exists now. So that's graphically, I think, a little more apparent when I said that there's now going to be a net gain of pervious surface area when we remove this structure, this paved driveway, and then you see the hatched area would replace. So there would be less after than is existing now. And we felt that the purpose of the ordinance was to maintain water quality, and by reducing the amount of impervious area, we would be, in fact, enhancing the filtration of the runoff before it reaches the stream. So
this actually is a good illustration of my original question. is it possible to slide that addition out of the 75, slide the pool into the 75, and therefore we've got much, much less encroachment? And you expressed that that was going to create some challenges with the septic.
With the reserve septic system.
Just that.
I mean, it's also the turnaround, the driveway, all the other stuff that goes with that. And it's not shown on here, there's an existing well.
Yeah, I did see that earlier.
And there are setbacks that are dictated by the health department for wells. Even if we close them, we have to stay distances away from that, and that really hurts us on the septic available area there. Because the last thing they want is effluent going into a well.
Bob, do you know off the top of your head what those setbacks are? Because there are 2 wells in that area, it looks like.
Yeah, it's usually 100 feet.
Really?
It depends upon if it is used for drinking water or
irrigation.
if it is irrigation only. It's 100 feet if it is for drinking water, and it is, I'm pretty sure, 50 feet
Irrigation.
for irrigation.
That's correct.
So you draw
For the
those
drinking water well.
radiuses.
So that further impinges the area that you can actually even use for septic, too.
That is correct. So that's why when it looks like a bigger area here, then technically it is for usable area for the septic.
Mr. Chair, he could hook up to city water, though, county water. I mean, he doesn't have to use the well.
Right. But even regardless, it has to be a distance away in terms of potential
If it stays a functional
pollution
well.
of that well.
Right, if
Yeah,
it stays a
we
functional
have to,
well.
it will not work with a 100-foot radius. We are going to convert the well to irrigation purposes only to allow enough room for a reserve septic system. Otherwise, if we superimpose a 100-foot radius on that well, there's not enough room. It completely eats up that area there. So it will be tied to city water.
Or county. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant before we move to public comment?
We do not have any other public comment for this item.
I'll call just to make sure, since we've had some discussion, questions may have popped up from the public. In moving to public comment, which I'll be opening up, the way we manage this is in 2 10-minute sessions. We'll do a 10-minute session for anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition, and then we'll do a 10-minute session for anyone who wishes to speak in favor. A full first call for any public comment for those in opposition. In favor, I was told we should go first. Anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Hearing and seeing no interest in public comment in favor, is there anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition? Not seeing any interest in public comment, we'll move to the opportunity for the applicant to provide a closing or any rebuttal to what we've discussed.
Phil, this is a unique situation in that we're dealing with an existing residence that was built inside the buffers. We're trying to make an addition to this, and we're dictated by the location of the existing structure, make an addition to it. We feel like we're removing more impervious area than we're replacing with, and that the purpose of the ordinance was to maintain the water quality of the streams. And we feel like we will be, if the project is approved, we will be accomplishing that by removing more impervious area and allowing more filtration of the stormwater runoff before it goes to the stream. Thank you for your consideration.
Stay with us for a second, Mr. Reese. Are there any final questions for the applicant or for staff before we move to a motion?
Question for the applicant. Do you have any knowledge of a potential future request to add a pool down the road? You know,
That was where he put in, that this was best case scenario. If he's denied, or if you approve this without, I will strongly recommend to him that he would not. I think he would have the legal ability to come back at some point. I think, is there a 1 year or 2 year?
It's 1 year. From
1 year.
tonight.
So I can't say that I can't say he will never sell this property and someone might not come back. But any improvements inside those setbacks or buffers would require a variance for any future construction. So, I mean, if you deny the pool, then I don't foresee this applicant coming back. We will try, if it's a absolute that he has a pool, we will see if we can't manipulate the system some way to force, outside of the setbacks and buffers.
And related to that, and it's important, I think, for the public record, the applicant did email the board and staff today with his intention.
I just want to make, this is to make sure, please don't kill the house based upon the pool.
And based on that, I think it's important I read what he stated into the record. And this is a quote: "If it will help in my house variance, I will agree to take out the pool altogether, demo the lower asphalt driveway next to the creek to make that area impervious, in addition to the demolition of the other 3 structures that are already in the buffer zone." That's an email from Mr. Gaston to Cody dated March 13th. So I think that sufficiently addresses the intent. Any other questions for staff or the applicant before we move to a motion? Okay, thank you, Mr. Reese. The floor is open for a motion. I'll make a motion on V19-001, and that is to deny Part 1 and Part 2 of the motion, and I'll reserve my rationale for discussion.
I second that.
So with a motion for denial and a second, we are in discussion. I would offer that my concern stems from item B of our variance considerations and the self-imposed nature of this. Although I do understand the trade-offs in the structures, and I believe that, as Mr. Cole pointed out, there are other options available to the applicant on this property.
The only option is, though, what becomes of this structure? Because I've seen it, I think we all have driven by it. It's not the prettiest feature. Mm-hmm. So I feel like this would almost be an improvement, with the exception of the pool. So I would make a motion to approve the proposed new structure with the exception of the pool and the pool house. So Part A, I would have a motion to approve. Part B, I would deny.
Well, right now, we just have one, we have a motion.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just I'm just saying, I feel like something should potentially happen with this structure. Otherwise, I don't know what you do with it.
Other discussion?
My challenge is any construction that's happening within the buffer and kind of getting beyond that. We're also sacrificing that rural view shed as well with that structure that's close to the road. And then if we're adding a pretty large garage alongside of that, I think it harms the rural view shed.
That was my concern. I think you raise a very good point, which is something would be an improvement, but we don't know what that something is at this point. And what we know has been requested is much larger in terms of the rural view shed, and it's very close to the road.
Yeah.
Feels like more sharpening.
Is there a way to do a rendering, or I know we don't have them, but see what that architecturally is going to look like?
So we, in terms of options, we could potentially defer and ask the applicant to come back with some sort of site elevation to give us a better rendering.
I think that's right. I think that's, and to find out where the driveway is going to go. I feel like this is not ready to be here yet. There needs to be
That's an option.
more information for us.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a,
I think we need some more information. The driveway is one of the things that's key on there, getting some elevation, more information on the elevation and so forth. Based on the email that we received from the applicant willing to remove the pool, I think that shows that the applicant's willing to work with us. I think if we have some more information, it'll help our decision process a little further.
Okay. Is there further discussion on this current motion? Okay, I'm going to take a vote on this current motion, which is to deny in full. So all those in favor of denial, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
I'm opposed as well. So that motion did not carry to,
Oh, sorry. I thought you said in favor of denial.
yes, and I did.
Okay,
And
okay.
that was my original
Okay,
motion, but
okay.
based on discussion, I changed my viewpoint.
Okay.
okay.
And I'll leave it to you to make a motion.
So I'll motion that we defer till next month until we can get some architecturals to see what the elevation from the street's going to be. I think that's a good point. And then, so I guess would that be part A, we defer, part B, we deny?
No, we will defer in whole.
I'll be honest,
Or
with you, defer
defer
the
in whole,
whole
okay.
item. And also, I think from the original note that it sounds like there may not be meeting. You mentioned next month, I think with the next scheduled
Oh,
meeting.
so the next
Scheduled
scheduled
meeting.
meeting,
Yeah.
okay. So I motion that we defer until the next scheduled meeting.
I'll second that motion for discussion. Is there any specifics that we can call out for the applicant so that, because they will be investing additional time and money, so can we be specific in what we're requesting?
I would like renderings of the attached building, the new attached building, the new renovation that's happening.
So
I'd like
street
to see,
view,
yes, yeah.
elevation.
I mean, that just helps us. The driveway, the barn removed, how this will look and appear without a pool, and pool house. Let's see. I mean, you said they're going to go with county water, so, I mean, just all these, it would just be nice to have a tighter package as to what's actually going to happen with this property.
Including whether or not they have a basement. We can-
Right.
We'll make
Yeah, 'cause
sure.
we
that
don't
have a
know
complete
that about the
package. Whether or
addition.
not they have a basement, I'll make sure that they have a complete package of
Okay.
architecturals to show you exterior. Can I just ask, who seconded Jason's?
Todd.
Todd? Okay, thanks, Todd.
May I suggest that the motion to bring it back at the next scheduled meeting is as is. This perhaps is a recommendation as to what they like, this board would like to see when it considers it, given the comments that they've heard as to the concerns.
Okay. And what I heard was this board would like to see, recommend a street view renderings of the structures, plans for the driveway, site plan views without the pool and the pool house, as well as the building removals, the existing buildings removed. Okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I read those off in the record so that staff has that and can discuss that offline with the applicant. So any further discussion on the motion to defer? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion to defer passed unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Reese. The next item on the agenda is V19-002, which is 305 Darby Road. Would staff please present?
Okay, the applicant is requesting to allow a structure to encroach into the 75-foot impervious setback, section 20-4262. The site is a .88 acre lot located on Darby Road. It is zoned AG1 and located within the rural Milton overlay. The property includes an existing single-family home. The applicant proposes to demo the existing house and build a 3,535 square foot single-family home, a 611 square foot covered porch, and a 296 square foot back patio. The existing home was built in 1950, which predated the City of Milton ordinance regarding stream buffers and is grandfathered legal non-conforming lot, structure and lot based on the fact that the lot's located on gravel roads which require a minimum 3 acres. The applicant shows the new septic system will be out of the stream buffers. The existing home is currently located in the 75-foot impervious setback and will remain only in the 75-foot setback when demolished, and the newly reconstructed home will be placed in the same approximate area. There appears to be an above-ground pool or outside storage. This will be required to be removed and revegetated. Section 20-426-2 states that an additional 25-foot impervious surface is required and adjacent to a stream. All impervious cover shall be prohibited in this setback. Since the applicant proposes to construct a single-family home that will encroach into this area, a variance is required. The Design Review Board on March 5th stated the following: how much disturbance will be created due to the basement. And then in regards to department comments, the site plan review build in the same footprint because of the size, shape, and topography of the property. The city architect states that reviews the design of the house and meets the requirement of the rural review shed. He's already reviewed the elevations of the house. And there were no other comments from the departments. The staff response to the standards for consideration are: the intent of the ordinance is to protect the health of our streams. The applicant has proposed a similar footprint of the original house on the site plan and limiting the amount of disturbance in the 75-foot impervious setback. 2, this property was platted at 0.88 acres, but is grandfathered legal nonconforming within the AG1 zoned area. The original house was constructed before the City of Milton stream buffers and were enforced, making the reconstruction of any new house impossible without relief. The size of the lot also makes it difficult for the applicant to position the house anywhere else because of the existing topography of a high bank on the western portion of the lot. This proposal minimizes the impact on the surrounding properties and limits disturbance to the 75-foot impervious setback. The proposed scope of work will enhance the rural character in the area and will not cause a substantial detriment to the public good. Through limiting further encroachment and proper mitigation, the public safety, health, and welfare will be secured. And I just want to make a comment. I was speaking to the applicant's representative that in the site plan, it indicates on the eastern portion, or actually the northern portion, the existing septic system, and that he would be utilizing that system, the same system, and then the backup system would be where the proposed septic system. If there was a question about the secondary field, then it's going to be on the left side of.
So the proposed is actually the reserve.
Right, correct. I just wanted to clarify that. And with that said, staff recommends that the proposed variance be approved with conditions, which would be, if you so choose to approve per site plan dated 12/18/2018 by Sullins Engineering, and the proposed house needs to be the same size and location of existing house within the 75-foot impervious setback. So, and that concludes our staff report. And we have the applicant here as well as the owner who's prepared to speak.
Okay, are there any questions for staff? No questions for staff?
Well, the second item, that the house needs to be the same size and location, The original size of the house, according to property records, public property records, was 910 square feet, and the new one is 1327.
Can you, 910 to what proposed?
1327 proposed.
I'm sorry.
There's Brenda seeking clarification between of existing footprint versus similar footprint. The existing footprint it appears to be 910 square feet. The proposed footprint looks to be 1327 square feet. Is that accurate?
So it appears that they are requesting to have a porch and a covered patio that would be larger than the existing footprint.
Well, that's additional. The 1327 is just the main dwelling, and originally it was 910. So the comments here, or the recommendation, is that it be in the same size.
Well, it should be in the same location, so unless you want to require
So
that
not
they-
same size.
Not same footprint.
Right. They're
Okay.
not, so it's not the same
It-
footprint, yeah.
Okay.
And it seems what they're proposing is to increase the footprint
Right.
and then add a covered porch and a back patio.
Correct.
That's correct.
Yeah. So staff had recommended same size and location. So we can take off the same size.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying, Brenda. Any other questions for staff before we bring the applicant forward? Jason?
Before you go, I want to make sure that's clear, because you've got approved per site plan, but same size and location. Seems like the site plan didn't match the same size and location from what I understood.
And that's what
been
Brenda was
discussed.
clarifying, yes.
So
So the second part of the recommended condition,
Yeah, would
Is-
not be applicable. So if you so choose to approve it, then it should just be, and I apologize, just approved per the site plans, because it indicates the new footprint. And if you so approve any other additions, like the porch or patio, so.
okay. Okay, with that, I'd ask Mr. Matheny or whoever's here to speak on behalf of case B19-002.
Good evening.
Welcome.
My name's Randy Matheny, and I'm from 128 Forester Road, Maysville, Georgia. And I'm representing this property. And I was listening to your comments. These people are building a very nice house that they've lived in. I don't know if you've looked at the house that's there. It needed a lot of improvement. And they're trying to build a house they're going to live in the rest of their life. And, of course, they want to make it nice. And we really didn't have a lot of room to work with. And we had engineers that worked tirelessly on this. This went 2 or 3 months of trying to figure out how to make this lot work. It's a very tight lot. And we did, we hope we found a great way to do it. The footprint is a little bigger, but it's not that much bigger to injure anything, injure the stream. We made sure that we're well enough away. Most places have a 50-foot buffer, and of course, Milton has that extra 25, which did create a hardship on the tight lot that we were working with. And we tried to work with it as best we could with what we had. So maybe if you consider that was a tough job. It's been in the work for months.
Yes. Is there anything else? You've heard some of our questions to staff regarding the structure and the size, and you've heard the previous case and questions around, what's it going to look like? Do you have anything to comment regarding that?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you mean.
Do you have anything further? All we have is the site plan in terms of the structure that is being proposed.
The structure is going to be 2 stories. It does have a basement on it, and the basement is designed because there's no other room to put any other structure. And, I mean, you have no storage places that you can do. Everybody likes to have that little extra place they can put their stuff, their tools, or whatever in. And the basement, it was brought up, I think, by Mr. Roberts in the last meeting. What about the basement? And it got my curiosity up because I didn't have an answer for him. And I went back and found out that basically this was going to be used as storage, a little place. You know, every man wants to have his own little place to put his stuff in, and that's going to be one of them. And there's no other place to put it on the property. And what they're trying to do is build a home that they can live in and be functional for their family. They've lived there for 25 years, and they continue to want to live there longer. So we didn't have a lot to work with, and we're just putting it up on you guys to sort of help us with this because this is a tough hardship, I think. I think the lot created a hardship for them to have to work with for this. And it'd be impossible to build a new house nowadays without getting out of the footprint of a house built many years ago.
Related to the question on the basement, it does not appear that there is any garage proposed with the new.
No, there's not.
Okay. And the current structure does not have a basement currently.
That's correct, yes.
With that basement and this footprint being in the 75 impervious setback, and the engineers that have been involved, do you feel there'll be any problem constructing that basement while staying out of the 50-foot buffer? In other words, not providing any encroachment during the construction process into the 50-foot buffer for the basement.
I feel like they are aware of that buffer. The builders, they're professional builders, and they're aware of that. And I'm sure they'll try everything. And if there's a recommendation, we'll make sure that it is stressed what you would not like to happen.
And what we've done in other similar circumstances is we've sometimes requested a temporary fence be erected along that 50-foot buffer to make it abundantly clear during construction not to encroach.
That is not a problem. Not a problem.
Any questions for the applicant? No. Okay, as you saw the process, we're going to now open it up for public comment. You'll have a chance
I think the owner would like to speak if that's...
certainly, or she is certainly welcome to do that now.
Would you? Just right now?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
And you'll also have a closing opportunity if, based on public comment.
Gotcha, thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
My name's Jan Laquetta, and we have lived in our house for 25 years. I don't know if you saw a picture of what it looks like now, but it's tiny. So we're looking to build a home. We've done our best to find a narrow home that fits on the lot that is as pervious as possible. We are asking to go from 910 square feet to, I think you said 1320 or 13 something. I don't think that's a big change. You know, we're doing our best to stay in the confinements as best we can. I don't think it would be possible to build outside the 75 feet. We would end up going into the hill. If you look at the site plan, our lot starts at very high and has a steep bank, and then it has a flat area, and then another steep bank down to the creek. So our house right now sits at the 50-foot line, so we're hoping you can grandfather us in and put the new house at the 50-foot line so we can have a little bit of room in between the house and the hill on our side. We certainly do not need an impervious driveway. We've had a gravel driveway the whole time we've lived there. I'm perfectly happy having a river rock driveway. I'm trying to think of some of the other concerns. Oh, in the basement, we really need a basement. We're both veterinarians. We have lots of animals. We plan to use the basement a lot for the dogs. And my husband would very much like to have some kind of a workshop. Our original plans included a garage/workshop, and we took those off and then added the basement because the septic was not going to allow us to have that additional portion to the building. So we're using the original septic. Our secondary septic, our backup septic, is up on the hill. So I think it would be very difficult to move the house closer to the hill too, because then we'd be closer to the septic. So I just wanted you to know we've lived here a long time, and we've done our best to choose a home that will fit on our lot. Oh, and we actually own almost 1.2 acres, but the creek has shifted, and we have a little plot behind that's just this little almost quarter-acre plot that we never intend to build on. I think the only thing I might ever use that for is to go out and put some fruit trees out there that I might actually have time to do now that my kids are grown up. So, we would never build out there, so we have a little bit more than an acre, and we have no intention of putting any other buildings or anything like that on there. Have I forgotten anything? Nope.
I have one question, and either one of you can answer it. I can't tell from this site plan. What's the setback of the home? How far back from Darby Road is it?
I think it's about 100 feet. When we had our well, we dug maybe 10 years ago. They told us that we had to have the well 50 feet away from the road and 50 feet away from the house. So we have a well in the middle of the front yard.
And that looks to be
It's
something that
over.
will be
But
capped.
that's going to be,
It's probably 120 feet. It's over 100 feet.
okay, that's going to be capped, and we're going to have a new well.
Okay.
Yeah. I think because of the septic.
So with the increased size of the house, and like, you're right, it's not that much, 400 square feet or so. Are you pushing towards that buffer line, or which way?
We're pushing away towards the hill,
Okay.
away from the creek.
Okay.
And then back a little, not towards the road.
Okay.
We entertained moving the house over, and that's what was suggested. But there's a bank there, and if you moved it over, you would wake up in the morning and look out your window and see a bank.
And there's the bank.
It'd be right there at it.
Yeah.
So that was sort of put a damper on that thing. We was trying to get in that area, so.
Yeah, topography is important to understand.
Yeah.
And do you still have a copy of the elevations?
I do not.
Okay, I didn't bring it.
No, Chad took them when I did all my submission for everything, so he's got the elevations for
Cody? Or Chad?
Cody. I'm sorry,
Cody. Okay.
Cody has it. I've already submitted for the building
see him in
application,
here.
and that was submitted with it. And we're going to do a demo, which they approved last time, and then of course it's variance done at the same time.
While you're both here, before we get to public comment, Bob, this is somewhat of a question to you. Do you feel with the increased footprint that there's a need for a mitigation plan for the downspouts and catching that into
I do.
infiltration system? Is
I
it?
do. If this gets approved, we're going to have to implement the
And is the right
mitigation
term an
plan
infiltration
to
system?
do flow wells and things.
Flow wells,
Because
okay.
he's right up against the 50.
And so that's a mitigation. Are you familiar with what we're discussing?
Mm-mm.
So since this property does sit up against the 50-foot buffer and you're looking to enlarge the footprint even only 400 square feet, one mitigation technique, it would be to take the downspouts and run them into what's called a flow well system to limit the amount of discharge down the banks and more erosion.
That's those kind of things.
Almost like a French drain.
I don't want to get beyond my technical ability.
If
I
that's
can
your
work with the
recommendation,
engineers to
we can
flow
do
well.
it.
I think you understand what it is,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Okay. All right. Any further questions for the applicant before we get to public comment? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
With that, I'll open public comment, same approach. We'll open it 10 minutes in total for those here to speak in favor. and 10 minutes for those in opposition. Please be prepared to have filled out a yellow public comment card. Anyone here to speak in favor of this application V19-002? There is no public comment in favor. Is there anyone here to speak against this application? Okay, there's no one here to speak against it either. So we will move back to the applicant or its representative has an opportunity for a closing comments or rebuttal before we move to a motion.
We appreciate your time tonight, your concerns. We understand. We want to work with you in any way we can to make this a successful project. So we ask for your indulgence on this and approve it for us. Thank you very much.
I've got a question for the applicant.
Yes, and we can do that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
How much of the existing structure is in the 75-foot setback?
I think pretty much most of it. Let me look at my map.
That's what I had asked.
The 50-foot setback, we're out of the 50-foot setback, and we are pretty much in the 25, Milton's 25.
Which we call the 75-foot impervious.
Okay, yes.
Would you mind passing
Yes.
that forward so I can show it to the board? That's the existing.
Where's the new one? They're sliding everything over. Going to put it right in the middle. That's half of it.
Excuse me. I told you a story. I got going through all the papers. I do have some elevations if you would like to look at them.
Yes, do you have them in hard copy or electronic? If you'd please pass them to
Okay, let me-
the city architect.
We could also put it on the big screen if you'd like.
If you can.
Yeah, that would be much
Yeah, I think
better.
it'd be worthwhile for the public.
Even this, the existing drawing, I could put on the big screen as well. If you want,
Yes, please. That'll help everyone.
that'll help the audience to see it.
Basically, right?
I didn't mean to tell you a story.
That's okay. I appreciate you coming forward.
Well, he's at 49. Existing was at 49.
Is it upside down? I think it's upside down.
Can you slide it down so we can see Darby Road?
Go up.
There you go.
This way too.
That's better.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
So that's the existing.
So this is the existing, and then you have the plans.
So you're making use of the existing gravel driveway and the concrete pad, it looks like?
Would you like to see the elevation?
Sure.
If you see the house is going to be a very attractive house.
And this is the elevation from the Darby Road view?
No, this would be the porch.
So this is facing the stream?
Oh, the concrete pad we won't have no use of.
That'll be gone.
It'll be gone.
Okay. Is there a street elevation?
Do you have a street elevation? Which one?
Street elevation?
Street elevation, I don't have that.
You don't have a street. I can show you the other one.
Oh, here it is.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's the street.
I mean, you spent all this money with engineers, you might as well show it off.
That's really nice. It's cute.
Okay.
I did review this with the applicant back in October, so I thought it met all the rural viewshed requirements.
And the pool is already gone too. It was above ground pool for the kids. It's gone.
This is the side,
She said it's 100 feet off. All right.
facing the bluff. And this would be the rear.
It's the back.
The rear, you're right, the rear, yeah, the back.
Okay.
So is that the street view right here?
That was
No,
the rear.
the street
Okay,
view's
the
got
other
the,
one. Okay.
the bay.
You want to see the front again?
There you
Oh,
go,
I
the
saw
street.
it, yeah.
Okay.
That looks great.
Front facing Darby.
Okay, are there any further questions for the applicant or for staff before we move to a motion? Okay, thank you very much. You can have a seat. The public comment for this item on our agenda is closed, and I'll open the floor for a motion and a second.
I can make an motion to approve petition number V19-002-305 Darby Road with conditions. Approved per site plan dated December 18th, 2018 by Solon's Engineering LLC. The proposed house needs to be in the same location of the existing house in the 75-foot impervious setback. The above-ground pool and outside storage shed to be removed. There should be a silt fence at the 50-foot buffer
During construction.
during construction. A infiltration or a mitigation system, is that the
Stormwater mitigation.
stormwater mitigation plan, also to be included in this condition. Let's see. I think that's all that I have, is that?
I'll second.
Okay.
Before you go on, I still think we have an issue of telling them the second condition of setting it in the same location as the existing, but then we have a site plan specific.
They're not working together, right?
Right.
So should we take that off?
I think the second one conflicts with the first one.
Right,
If you
I
want
think
the
so,
site
too.
plan, that'll put you in exactly the location.
Okay,
You're telling them exactly where to put it.
okay.
Is that how you want to restate the motion, dropping item 2?
Yes, correct.
And I'll second that motion, and I'll restate the conditions for everyone's concern. So first, approval is the overarching motion with conditions approved per the site plan dated 12/18/2018 by Solon's Engineering. Second condition, a temporary silt fence at the 50-foot buffer during construction. Third, requiring a stormwater mitigation plan. Number 4, removal of the above-ground pool and accessory structure. Any discussion? Did I get those correct, Brenda?
Yes.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of approval with those stated conditions, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion with conditions passed unanimous. Congratulations and good luck on your project. The next item on our agenda is V19-003, 622 North Main Street. This one is for a sign variance. I'll just remind the board and the public, the consideration for a sign variance is as follows. Relief only to the sign ordinance may be granted where existing foliage or structures bring about a hardship whereby a sign meeting minimum letter size, square footage, and height requirements cannot be read from an adjoining public road. With that, I'll ask the applicant to please come forward to present. I believe it's Mr. Laycock.
Do you want staff to read the report?
I'm sorry, I went out of order. I did. That's what I get for not following my own. Yes, staff,
Okay.
please present.
Okay. The requested variance is to increase the maximum number of wall signs to 3. It normally is 2. The site is a 2.25 acre lot located on North Main Street. It is zone T5 within the Deerfield Form-Based Code. The property includes a self-storage facility under construction that is near completion. The applicant proposes to install 1 sign facing North Main Street and 2 more signs on the east elevation of the building. The applicant has submitted 1 sign on the south and that is in compliance with the sign ordinance. The applicant is proposing a 2-line text sign that would be classified as 2 separate signs on the east elevation of the building. The different planes of the building is hindering the applicant to design a sign that could be placed on the building's material. The sign ordinance allows a maximum of 2 wall signs for each place of business. And since the applicant proposes more than 2 wall signs, a variance is required. At the Design Review Board on March 5th, it was stated the building looks great, board supports the variance, and there were no comments from the various departments within the city. Again, you stated the standard for consideration, and the staff response to it is the proposed signage along the east elevation of the subject site is 98.9 square feet. The applicant states that he has a true hardship in making the signage aesthetically pleasing, and the building materials make it difficult for the applicant to design a sign that will address the different elevation planes of the building. Staff recommendation is for approval with conditions, and those conditions we would recommend, if you do recommend approval, is per plans dated stamped February 7th by Elroy Signs, 2019. And with that, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
I do have one question, and it's in our packet, the Elroy signs drawings. I don't see where the date as being February 7th, 2019. Am I missing that? The last I see is 1/14 of 19.
110,
Oh, I've got,
2017.
I'm seeing too, Mr. Chair.
right here.
I mean, if you do approve it, you could just state that it's a site plan included in the staff report packet. So just to clarify.
Is there also a size, even if they get the variance for the additional sign, then is there a sign restriction size?
The size, I believe it's 3% of the wall. So if you take the square footage of that wall, then of the plane, then it's 3%.
Okay.
So I believe that if it wasn't all on 2 different planes, I think it was a 4-inch difference.
If it's not on, because he's got stucco and then brick, and the brick
Right.
is sticking out 4 inches away from the stucco, if you were to make it 1 sign, if he put it right where he wants it with 1 sign, 1 metal sign, he would be within the size limitation. He would meet code. But because we're looking to break up that sign to match the 2 different elevations, the stucco and then the brick, so you know, you don't have 1 sign just hanging, it's kind of like meeting the elevations of the building, the materials of the building. It would technically make it 2 signs, but if it was 1, the overall of the 2 match and meet the code.
I see.
Did you
So
say,
it's within the
It is
allotted
within the square footage. We're just looking for the applicant to potentially break it up so that the upper sign is resting on the
because he's breaking it
stucco,
up.
and because he's
Count as 2.
breaking it
Right,
up.
I got you.
I
Okay.
mean, he could just put 1 big sign there, but it would kind of not match the architecture of the building.
I follow you.
I think they're discussing right now. The 3% or 5%?
We're just double checking that.
Okay,
I think it's 5.
yeah.
It is 5%.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
It
okay.
is 5% of the
Just
wall
wanted to
area.
make sure.
And it's a big wall.
And it's a big wall.
Yes, it's huge.
He's certainly meeting the size requirement. The reason for the request is really because we're trying to match the signs to the exterior architecture of the building. And because we put in brick and stucco, we have, the brick is sticking out. It's not a flush facade. It's got a 4-inch difference. And we would like the signs to be mounted tight to the wall and not 4 inches away from the wall, because then it would look like it's kind of applied rather than designed.
Imagine that, architecture on a self-storage facility, and someone must have been involved in that. With that, I'd ask, are there any,
We've been working very hard with this applicant for a very long time. He's done a very nice job.
any
with
other
the
questions for staff before we ask the applicant up? Mr. Laycock, the floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is George Laycock, and this is a CubeSmart facility at 622 North Main. As Bob mentioned, and you brought up a good point, we've spent a lot of time architecturally on the elevations of this building. And I don't know, I haven't seen where this difference in elevation actually makes it not conforming as a single sign. But I think the intent here is to try to carry through with, the facade that we've created and continue to make it look as nice as we can. So that's why Bob encouraged me to come in and petition for a sign variance. As he said, it meets all of the requirements for a single sign.
Any questions for the applicant?
Excuse me, if you can fill out a card before you leave. I don't
Yeah,
know.
your name and address. If you can
Certainly.
read that into the record. Your name
Absolutely.
Name and address.
Yep, happy to. It's name's George Laycock. Corporate address is 15 Boones Ridge Parkway, Ackworth, Georgia.
Have you won any awards for that architectural design within your company?
We haven't entered it yet.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant? With no questions, I'll have you take a seat and I'll open it for public comment.
Sure, thank you.
Is there anyone here to speak in it's a 10-minute time frame in favor of this application? No? Is there anyone here saying 10-minute allotment to speak in opposition of this application? Okay, none. Mr. Laycock, you have an opportunity to make a closing or rebuttal statement if you want before we move into questions and then our own motion.
No, not really. I mean, what Bob indicated is what we've all worked toward, and I think he's stated what the goal is, and there's really not much else to say.
I believe a picture is worth 1,000 words. Can you put that picture up on the screen, Bob? Just so the public has an opportunity to see what we're looking at. And while you do that, are there any questions for staff or the applicant before we move to a motion? None?
None.
You can see the stucco is the cream color, and then the darker color would represent the brick area. And there would be a 4-inch difference in the horizontal planes, in the vertical planes, I'm sorry.
Okay. With no questions for staff or the applicant, you can have a seat, and
Thank you.
I'll make note that the public comment for this application is closed, and I'll open the floor for a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve 19-003 at 622 North Main Street to allow for a third sign based on the plans submitted by Elrose Signs dated 1/14/2019 and included in our packet today.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion passed unanimous. Thank you for working with city staff and coming up with a great product.
George, can you just fill out a yellow card? Yes, before you leave? Thank you, sir. All right.
The next item on our agenda, which is the last variance case, is V19-004, 2420 Saddle Springs Drive. Would staff please present this application?
Sure. The application request is to allow a septic system to encroach into the 75-foot impervious setback, section 20-426.3. The site is a 3.02 acre lot located on the corner of Saddle Springs Drive and Saddle Springs Lane in the Sunnybrook Farms subdivision. It is zoned AG1 and located within the rural Milton overlay. The property includes an existing 5,000 square foot single-family home that was built before the incorporation of the city. The applicant proposes to subdivide the 3-acre property into 2 lots. The eastern half of the property has a stream that forks into 2 smaller streams that cover the majority of the property. The applicant is proposing to build a 3-bedroom home that will be out of the stream buffers and setbacks. However, the applicant cannot fit the septic absorption fields on the lot without a variance. Sunnybrook Farms was platted with only 25-foot stream buffers, and the existing house was constructed with the applied 25-foot buffers. Since the applicant needs the septic fields to encroach into the 75-foot impervious buffer to make the consideration of subdividing the lot possible, a variance is required. And at the March 5th DRB meeting, the DRB stated the applicant shows a real hardship. In regards to department comments, the site plan review department states does not show hardship by splitting the lot. And in stormwater, will need variance for any floodplain compensation. The staff's response to the 4 considerations are the following. The intent of the ordinance is to protect the health of our streams. The applicant has requested to put a septic system to encroach into the 75-foot impervious setback and must show that the newly created lot can hold a septic system which encroaches into this impervious setback. The location of the leaching field lines offends the spirit of the ordinance. Secondly, the applicant has not demonstrated that there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to this lot that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship, since the need for this variance is based on creating a second lot and therefore caused by the applicant. Thirdly, the applicant wants to subdivide the 3.02 acre lot into 2 lots, which harms the rest of the neighborhood. The neighborhood's lots are all at a minimum of 3-acre lots, and by causing the subdivision, it may cause future development within the neighborhood. In addition, the location of the leaching field lines may cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. Lastly, the denial of this variance would secure public safety, health, and welfare by maintaining the health of the streams and the development standards within the subdivision. Staff's recommendation is denial of this request. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. Approval per the site plan dated February 7, 2019 by Brumbelow Reese and Associates. And secondly, the city engineer shall approve the necessary documentation for crossing a stream and erosion control. With that is the conclusion of the staff's report.
There's been a fair amount of neighbor input that's been submitted, and feel it's important before the applicant presents for the public and for the applicant to understand some of that input. So with that, we just in reading, not in full into the record, but just a synopsis of each letter that this board has received and staff. One was an email dated March 19th from Carolyn Pace, which is against this application. Carolyn lives at 2320 Saddle Springs Drive. And she provided a recap of the Milton Stream Buffer Guidelines, which seek to stabilize the stream banks, reduce channel erosion, trap and remove contaminants, restore floodwaters, reducing property damage, improves aesthetics, improves recreational educational opportunities, improves aquatic life. Those are some of the guidelines of which Milton has expressed and they quoted or cited in that email. Second was from Lisa Leeper, dated March 18th, 2019. Also a neighbor at 2305 Saddle Springs Drive, requesting denial of the request for the variance. Following the streams was a primary concern, as those feed the lake for the neighborhood, as well as just generally preserving the integrity of the large lot neighborhood and equestrian atmosphere they have in Sunnybrook. The third was from Jack Mandula, dated March 18th, 2019, also recommending or requesting denial of the variance. Their neighbors at 2355 Saddle Springs Drive. And he's concerned about development within the and our surrounding streams will have a consequence of adding additional silt into the creeks and the lake, which reduces the lake's stormwater capacity from the addition of silt. The next one was from Lou Brinkley, March 18th, 2019. This email is in support of the application. They are neighbors at 2315 Saddle Springs Drive. Their support is feeling that this new house would not diminish the property values. And others have subdivided, in their case, from 7.5 acres down to 3 acres. Lisa Strader, March 19th, 2019. They do not think subdividing and building on the current property will be detrimental to the neighborhood. I don't have an address for them, but it does look like they are neighbors. They cite that the applicant has been a resident in the neighborhood for many years, 15, 17 years, and has done a great job maintaining their property. The last one we have in record is from Michelle McMaster, March 19th, 2019. And Michelle states that she recommends to not approve subdividing in the septic setback variance. Concern would be that this would not enhance property values and goes against the uniqueness of this neighborhood being properties of 3 acres and larger. And that's why they moved there 22 years ago.
If the applicant, I have a set of those just for the sake of the opportunity to respond if necessary.
So with that, Mr. Reese is representing this application. The floor is yours.
What do you need?
I was going to put the site plan up. I think it kind of helps. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I am Scott Reese with Brumlow Reese and Associates, doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia 30004. I'm here tonight representing Ms. Michelle Sedgwick in her application for a variance to allow the construction of a septic field line inside the 75-foot impervious setback. Ms. Sedgwick has owned the property and house since 1992. It is a 5-bedroom, 5,000 square foot residence. She has raised her family and now wants a smaller house for her lifestyle. She purchased the property in unincorporated Fulton County with a 25-foot stream buffer. Since she has owned the property, the city of Milton was formed and has imposed a 50-foot buffer and 75-foot setback on her property. All of the subdivision was developed under the 25-foot buffer requirements. There is no ordinance that prohibits subdividing the properties down to 1 acre in size. We meet all requirements except the septic system inside the 75-foot setback. Although state and county jurisdictions regulate, the health departments regulate septic system construction and their maintenance, the city has created an ordinance that prohibits the septic system within the 75-foot impervious setback. So we're required to request a variance to allow the most pervious of improvements in an impervious setback. There is not a health department or a health risk involved in septic systems within 50 feet of the stream. That's why the health department, Fulton County, and the state regulate them. They've done the research. The effluent is treated to a more than acceptable level with filtration of 50 feet from a stream. There is no, okay, if we go 100 feet, it makes it better. You treat it, when it is treated by the soil and the microbes at the 50 feet level, or from the setback, it meets all the requirements. So, it's a very unique lot. Once again, it's 3.02 acres. There are 2 streams in there. Ms. Sedgwick really desires to stay in the neighborhood that she's lived in since 1992. She has spent more than 2 years looking for another lot in the area that kind of met her requirements and has been unable to find one. So she came to me and I said, it's going to be a difficult situation. We're going to see. So we went and passed through all the hurdles that I could foresee for subdividing it, except for the septic system inside the 75-foot setback. As you know, you have to design an initial and reserve septic system for any new construction. So when we did that, there's no way we can fit it in without that. So that's where we're at. I do have a smaller when I checked the tax guide, I found 2 or 3 lots that were less than 3 acres. So staff, you're confident that there are none less than 3 acres?
If you see the tax parcels, if they're less than.
Yes, ma'am. It was broadcast that there were no lots less than 3 acres, and I found something different than that. So I didn't know if you just took it on hearsay or you did the research. It was, or you're just saying we think they're 3 acres.
That was what was communicated to us. So.
Okay. Well, unless the tax digest is wrong, there are lots along that backside that are less than 3 acres.
Do you have any specific? You don't need to. I'm just saying.
Well, we just Googled. We just were on the tax assessor's website And there are at least 2, if not 3, that are 2.7 acres.
Okay.
So but to clarify that there are lots less than 3 acres. I understand this is 1.34, whatever the area is. We're dividing a 3-acre lot into 2, or proposing to do that in there. So, and in the neighborhood, there have been past subdividing of lots, and it is allowed. It's just, in this particular case, we would need a variance to do that. So that's where we're at. Ms. Cynthia Chanley was going to speak some on behalf of the applicant. So if you would.
Has Ms. Chanley
Yes.
public comment card?
Yes, she
Yes.
does.
Okay.
She does.
If you would just state your name and address for the record, that'd be great.
My allergies are really bad, so if I start coughing, I'm going to have a drink.
Okay.
Cynthia Chandley, 263 McGarity Road, Canton, Georgia, 30115. I have lived in this area since 1993, had a 30-acre farm on Wood Road, have loved land, loved Milton. I care about it greatly. I'm a real estate agent. I've been in the business 20 years. I've known for some of the highest sales north of 285. Sold the land, try to keep the integrity of land. I try to work with my clients the best I can. Michelle and I have been friends for 27 years, and when it came up to this property, she wanted to sell it. And so we were down the road, ready to subdivide it when we had the hiccup with the variance. We did put it on the market prior to this, and we had an influx of people looking at it, a highest and best situation, people trying to overbid for the property because we were selling it on 1 acre. People can't, the price point was right. What's happening in Milton is when you have these larger lots, people don't want to spend $175,000 to $150,000 more for all this extra acreage, and they can't justify it. And with her lot, they really didn't want the creeks and the woods because it wasn't pasture. It wasn't a place to put a horse. So there was a lot of pushback on trying to sell it all. The price point would go up significantly, keeping it as 3 acres. Her ex-husband, who's brilliant, came up with the idea of subdividing it. And typically when people want to subdivide, I look at their property and I'll say, it makes sense or it doesn't. And this property makes sense to me because if I have a picture of it. We put that up. If you see it, everything that she built is on the corner. The property is basically contained on the corner. It's got boundaries with really nice landscaping, and it's all fenced off, and she's basically lived on 1 acre. She has not touched really the 2-acre tract she's trying to subdivide. It's just sort of like God's land. It's spectacular with native beech trees and dogwoods and some really great, it's just a beautiful lot. We looked all over Milton, and I can find lots on busy roads, open roads with lots of road noise, setbacks galore with creeks and ditches and power lines, and we have cell towers, etc. Couldn't find anything, and nothing spoke to us like this lot did. Her property would be sitting up through those trees on the top of the hill, overlooking these beautiful streams. Now, most people, when they see a stream, they run because they can't afford to cross the stream because it's become cost prohibitive almost to be able to get across our creeks. You go into Buckhead, you can drive all day long, see creeks in the front, bridges, people going over them, and beautiful homes. And we did that in the old days. And now we've gotten sort of, oh my gosh, there's a creek. And so this land becomes idle, and it's now not a positive situation for the person that bought it 20 years ago. She now has a hardship of having creeks and land that people won't let her build on. She doesn't have buildable land because it's hard to work with. I've been a little bit perplexed with all the grandfathering and what's going on because I think back, White Columns, 800 units. The creeks on that were 50 feet. Now people are coming, wanting to put pools in, all this other stuff. Now they're at 75 feet with the new rules of Milton. We either need to let people buy their property and the constraints that were placed on them when they they bought the land and this is what they were going to adhere to, or if we keep changing what the rule is, it's going to be hard for me to sell it. Say, well, they could come back to you and say, you can't do that now because they've imposed this on you. So this was a situation that I was really interested in January when I met with staff and some of the people with her, how they were going to go with grandfathering in older subdivisions. Now, older subdivisions in the area would be Tullamore, it would be Greystone across the street, it would be this subdivision in North Valley. We only have a handful in Milton that are on acreage. And a lot of those subdivisions, if you look at them, are having a hard time selling because the lots are so big and the people can't afford them. And we're looking at a huge absorption rate of those homes because of the land masses. Now, in Sunnybrook Farms, if you drive through there, no, I don't see a lot of lots that you could subdivide. I would say no. This one makes sense because of how it lays. It would look perfect. She's going to build a minimalistic house, very simple, lots of glass and probably some iron gable roofs. Michelle has a very talented way with designing things, as you know, with her restaurants. She's a believer in the area. She came out here and built Vinnie's when the road used to be called Union Hill Road. Now it's Windward. She believes in the area. She loves the neighborhood, loves walking her dog, and this is where she wants to be. So this has been really upsetting to go through all this, which we thought was going to be easy peasy, and it wasn't. So anyway, I really, really would hope y'all would really think twice. This is a hardship for us, and this is where she wants to be. And you have someone that can spend the money to get across the creek, which is probably going to be $100,000. It's not a simple deal to go across the creek, but she's put that into consideration with this house she wants to build. The house is smaller. It's going to be like in the 3,000 square foot range. A beautiful situation. No, we don't have drawings, and the reason why is because we've spent money on Scott, the hydrologists, the builders, the people, and if y'all are going to deny us, we keep spending money, you might as well burn it. You know, we would like to draw plans, and that was our hope and desire. But we have not gotten that far. We have Pinterest boards that we could bring into you, but we don't have actual physical drawings. So that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have you
Is
filled
there
out
another
a public
pic-
comment card as well?
Yes.
This is the owner.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Michelle Sedgwick.
Okay.
So I'll try not to repeat too much, but I've lived in my house for 26 years. Probably since my daughter graduated, I've been thinking, what am I doing by myself in this 5,000 square foot house? And sitting out in my backyard and looking at my woods and walking in my neighborhood, that's why I've been there. And like Cynthia said, I've been looking around trying to find another piece of property that I could put a nice small house that will bring me the peace and really special beauty that I have in my neighborhood, in my yard. And it's not there. And it's definitely not there for $100,000 or $200,000 that I have in the land that I already have, that I own. I have other pictures.
Yeah, how do we get the next picture?
Let me just explain, though. The thing about my lot is it is very dividable, where it doesn't even look like it's one whole lot. I have my 1 acre that's landscaped and it's finished, and I have, like Cynthia said, yeah, I have this Google Earth.
Oh,
so
is that not
the yellow dot would be where
It's
the
not-
location
it's
of
not
the
showing
house
for us right now. Hang on.
is. It?
There you go.
There you
Yeah. So yeah, it's not an ideal lot at all. I've been working with Scott on this a year ago, January, and since then we've come and talked to the city, and we've been working with Ken, who's not necessarily real receptive to this. It's going to be extremely challenging, but we've been working with the hydrologist. I've spent a lot of time and money on this already, and I know that crossing this creek is not going to be an easy feat, and I'm aware of the challenges of doing that and the investment that I'll have to make and all of that. But we were trying to cross one bridge, so to speak, at a time, and the biggest one right now is with the septic and the reserve septic. Like Cynthia said, I just want a small home. I mean, really, the only reason I would even put 2 more bedrooms would be for a resale value if I ever got to a point where I wanted to do that. I wanted to put it as far back on the property as I could. I wanted, basically an over the river and through the woods, really serene, beautiful, unique house and lot. With the septic, I'm having to push it a little further forward. But I was really quite disappointed. And while I understand where my neighbors are coming from, because I don't want it to turn into this neighborhood like every other neighborhood. It's why I moved there 26 years ago. I do feel like my situation is quite different. It's probably hard for you to all look at it and, without being in my neighborhood and seeing how specific of a situation this is. I am sympathetic to their concerns, but I'm also that person who understands why they are concerned, and I know the integrity that I have and what the integrity that I want. And why I'm fighting to do this. I'm sorry. Anyway, it's upsetting. While I understand, it's upsetting. I wasn't expecting that, and I have enough hurdles as it is. But in terms of keeping the neighborhood the way that it is and why we're all living there, what I'm doing is not going to interfere with that. Whether we can go ahead and get everything else in line in terms of the hydrology and so forth. If you guys are looking at any of these photos, I don't know which way are you going.
Right. Whoops.
Lost it.
There you go. Click on that guy.
So this is to the right is where my house is, and so it basically just where the first creek is to the left. It's the woods, and it's very.
You got to use this guy.
Oh, I do. Okay. Oh, you click on that with that. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
There you go.
That's the left is that's a shot of the wooded lot, where I want to build. And that's from the back to the road. Anyway, I appreciate your consideration and.
Yep. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time and serving.
So I like to put a face with the variance. So that was the situation. To try to, I guess, bring it more into a purely aesthetics or what. The plan is to preserve, all of the trees except for what we have to take down to construct the house and the initial septic system. Of course, the driveway to it. So from the road, the intent is that you will just see the wooded lot and the house in behind. As was on the site plan earlier, you see the separation distance from the road. So our intent is to have a house in the woods. So we feel it would be not very intrusive to the neighbors. We have met with the staff on more than one occasion. I feel like I've addressed everything as far as the ability to put the house in without causing environmental hazards. The hydrology as far as crossing the stream, we've gone through that. We have really addressed everything except for the septic system. And my personal and professional opinion is if the state and county who regulate septic systems say that 50 feet is more than enough room to mitigate any undesirable effects, of runoff from the leach field, then I'm wondering what the intent, if the intent of the ordinance is to protect the stream, and the people that permit it say that it does that, then it's, what is the reason for the setback? Is it just a punitive measure, or, limit someone's ability to use their property? And it's especially difficult on people that have owned a piece of property that they purchased with a different set of regulations, and now the regulations have changed. So I fully understand someone who says, well, you're creating your own hardship by dividing the property. It is her property. She has owned the property since 1992. Life changes. The 5-bedroom, 5,000 square foot house is not where she's at now. And we really feel that dividing this and putting that house in there is will not offend the spirit or anything of the community. So that being said, I will conclude, and then we'll try to answer any questions if you have. So, thanks.
Scott, I'm going to leave
Yes.
you with a couple comments so that you can consider that
Okay.
in your rebuttal at the end. As you know, we have 4 considerations, and they're 4 equal considerations. So there is concern on my behalf. I've been forward with you in an earlier case regarding the self-imposed nature of this. But the second thing that, and we'll have public comment, perhaps additional, is the neighbors and the impact that they feel that this would have with this 1 acre lot being incongruent with the rest of the neighborhood. So just be considering that as we hear a certain more comment.
Yes. Sorry. Do you want me to answer that or
No.
wait after? Okay.
So are there any, before Mr. Reese or Ms. Sedgwick, is there any additional questions for them before I open public comment? Okay. With that, I will open public comment. First 10 minutes for anyone here to speak in favor. The next 10 minutes will be for anyone to speak in opposition. I would ask you to fill out a yellow comment card, and please announce your name and address in doing so. So with that, anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
I have Mr. Jacklet, if he wants to speak.
If you just let us know your name and address, please.
I'm Leonard Jacklet, 15800 Birmingham Highway in Milton. I am actually a general contractor here in Milton, also a site developer, and I'm a friend of Michelle's. I got involved a little bit after they have been dealing with this for a while. And in fact, because of some of the difficulties and comments, I know Michelle was really ready to kind of throw in the hat. Very upset about it, as you can see. My expertise was called in, and I actually really encouraged her to move forward. Those that know me, I'm a visionary. I have been for 43 years, started in the landscape industry, and have done many, many very high custom type operations here in Milton. I really have a vision for this, so I just wanted to get up and just share my heart about it. I, like Michelle, really empathize with those in the neighborhood and concerned. I totally understand that. I deal with that all the time with neighbors. This particular property, I think Scott addressed it, and that is that, as you saw in the pictures with Michelle showing you, it is very beautiful, full of trees. One of the hurdles that was presented to staff at the beginning, and they had a question about this and had an actual problem with this, was the way the hydrology appeared on a first run through, how that was going to have to happen with the creek crossing. I dived into it, and I worked with the engineers, and at the end of it, Scott addressed it very clearly. We are able to do the hydrology in a very, very clean way, and I do this all the time. And the grade that the road will actually sit on, which will be a gravel road, is actually on grade right now. So there does not need to be any changing to the grade that goes through the woods. We're going to meander the driveway and up to the house. The grade will actually not change until we get
past the buffer into the graded house site. So if you know anything about building, that's highly unusual, and it's very, very exciting when that happens, because part of building and developing, and I'm a tree lover, and we do everything we can to save trees. In this case, that's exactly what has to happen. We'll have a gravel driveway through, not affecting the root structure or the trees as we go. The actual creek crossing will be very, very indiscreet, and you really actually, the way it sits down into the level it is right now, it'll actually be very beautiful. So my heart wanted to share with you from a visionary and man that had done a lifetime of this. I actually encourage Michelle, excuse me, she really does have a beautiful vision. Her house does sit far back, so the way it will appear from the neighborhood is a beautiful meandering gravel driveway across a very, very nicely done creek crossing, and going up the hill to her house, it'll sit in the background with all the existing trees. So from a visionary point of view, I really wanted to share that to try to get your thoughts on it. Also, to address a couple of the concerns. I have been in this business a long time, and I certainly understand sediment issues and creek issues and neighborhood problems. So I did want to address that and say the way this will be constructed, because the hydrology allows us to do a very simple culvert crossing, and the hydrology accepts that, it'll be very, very minimal impact. During the construction of it, I can assure you beyond a shadow of a doubt, Jackley Construction, if you look us up, you'll see the caliper of our company. And it will be extremely protected above and beyond. So I can testify and give my oath here as the owner of the company that'll be doing that. And so I really don't want there to be concerns in the neighborhood as far as the sediment. So with that, seemed like there was one other thing I wanted to share with you all. But beauty will be the main factor, and I just want to encourage you to know it will be, and really Michelle's heart is to have exactly what she sees right now. So you can imagine our goal will be to preserve it and not take away from the look. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have approximately 5 minutes left. Is there anyone else here from the public who is speaking in favor? Okay, no one else. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? Please come forward. Same 10-minute overall time limit, and ensure that you announce your name and have filled out a public comment card.
Mr. Chairman, I have 4 cards already ready to announce. So
go ahead.
Okay. The first person is Teresa Stickles.
Just your name and address, please.
My name is Teresa Stickles, and I live at 14300 Saddle Valley Lane, Milton, Georgia, 30004. My home is in the Sunnybrook Farms neighborhood. I have lived in Milton for 27 years and at this Sunnybrook Farms home since 2007, I understand that it's very emotional for Ms. Sedgwick to be up here speaking about this. I want to point out that it's also very difficult to come forward and speak against a neighbor. We have a very tight-knit community. It's a very unique neighborhood. And so it's very hard to come up here today and say that I'm speaking in opposition to a neighbor. So, and I'll also have no doubt that whatever they are proposing will be beautiful. I have no doubt of that, but I don't think that's a compelling or overriding reason to ignore the conditions that are supposed to be met to grant a variance. I am asking the BZA to deny this request for a variance for several reasons. First, stream buffers exist for a reason. Our waterways provide our drinking water and provide habitat for wildlife. We not only have a duty to protect our streams, but have the legal mandate to do so. In the Milton Code of Ordinances, Section 20-426 states that all land development activity must meet the following requirements. An undisturbed natural vegetative buffer shall be maintained for 50 feet. An additional setback shall be maintained for 25 feet in which all impervious cover shall be prohibited, and no septic tanks or septic tank drain fields shall be permitted within the buffer or the setback. It's very clear. Secondly, subdivision is often allowed by right, and I'm not suggesting that legally conforming subdivision of property should not be allowed. In fact, there are a few properties in Sunnybrook Farms that have, over the years, been subdivided. Using the interactive maps on the City of Milton website, I believe one was originally 11.37 acres and was subdivided into 3 parcels of 3.42, 3.97 and 3.98 acres. The other was originally 10.69 acres and was subdivided into 2 parcels of 7.5 acres and 3.19 acres. You'll notice that the smallest resulting subdivision was a parcel of 3.19 acres, which is larger than the applicant's current 3.02 acre parcel. The Milton City Council has publicly endorsed incentivizing large lot development. This, they have suggested, will help preserve the rural character of Milton. Approving this non-conforming subdivision would be in complete opposition to the policy currently being promoted by our City Council. If we are encouraging large lot development as a way to preserve Milton's rural character, we should also be protecting our existing large lot subdivisions, such as Tullamore, North Valley, and Sunnybrook Farms. Finally, regarding the standards of conduct for variances, which Mr. Chernick read at the beginning of the meeting, the staff memo outlines these and clearly explains why none of these exceptions apply to the applicant. I've already spoken about the need to preserve the stream buffer, which is the intent and spirit of the ordinance, but I would like to specifically point out that the requirements for the exceptions say hardship cannot be self-imposed. The applicant is not being forced to subdivide the property, therefore there is no hardship. Given that none of the exceptions are being met, I respectfully request that you follow staff recommendations and that you deny this variance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I understand we have 3 others that are looking to speak. Just be mindful of each other's allotted time as you speak. And thank you for your comments and being organized.
The next speaker is Michelle McMaster.
Good evening. I'm Michelle McMaster. I live at 2300 Saddle Springs Drive, Milton, Georgia, 30004. I live in Sunnybrook Farms. I've been there for 22 years. I did send in an email earlier that was read, so I will keep everything short. And I can't elaborate any more than what Teresa just did. But because there are very few subdivisions in Milton that have large acre lots. And I'm sure anything that Ms. Sedgwick would do would be beautiful. She has very wonderful design concepts, and I'm not arguing that point. My point really is that in our unique subdivision, we do have larger lots, and dividing lots down to a little over an acre apiece is not keeping within the integrity and uniqueness of our subdivision. Not to mention a variance for a septic leach field that goes into the buffer that Milton has decided, over much research that they have done, that's unacceptable. It's not acceptable here. There are all kinds of laws for everything, and Milton has decided to keep the integrity of their city at the high level that it is, and a place where people want to come and live, that they impose these kind of variances. And I'm all for people deciding what to do with their property, but not at the detriment of the others that live around you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Bill Bernard.
Hi, I'm Bill Barnard. I live at 2460 South Springs Drive in Sunnybrook Farms. My wife and I have lived here for about 10 years. When we were looking for a home, move out from Sandy Springs, my wife said, "There's no way I'm coming way out here unless you find a special place." And we found a special place in Milton and in Sunnybrook Farms. I have to echo Teresa's comments about the closest in the neighborhood and it is very difficult to speak out on the subject. But we really feel, my wife and I do, that what attracted to us to this neighborhood was the large lot sizes, and we really feel like you should deny the variance because it does bring harm to our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Jane Mandula.
I'm Jane Mandula. I live at 2355 Saddle Springs Drive in Sunnybrook Farms. I feel like Michelle too. This is really hard to speak against a neighbor, and we have a very close-knit community. My husband and I have been there for 20 years now. We happen to have one of the bigger estates in the subdivision. We live on Stearns Lake, so we have 3 contiguous lots. I have a horse farm there. We have a vineyard there. We have almost 20 acres. There's a couple other neighbors. All of us on the lake we have 3 parcels. All of us on the lake have about 5 to 7 acres per lot anyway. In counting that up, I think there's 26 neighbors in our neighborhood. Most of us have been there for a very long time. And everybody walks around and all that, so we're all pretty close. But there are a lot of lots that are subdividable in there. So my husband's and my primary concern is really about the lakes and the stream. Any disturbance to those buffers, the buffers are there for a reason. I don't know if it was before or after Milton became a city, but upstream from Chicken Creek that feeds into our lake, development was allowed within that buffer. And every day, I have a bridge that goes over the creek between my pastures. And every day and every time there's a rainstorm, my pastures flood. The lake floods higher than it ever has. They've raised the level of the dam. So everything just backs up. I've got golf balls and tennis balls and all kinds of crap that comes down the creek from Crooked Creek and all of those developments that were approved on Francis Road right up against the creek. And I know there's another one you're looking at behind Wyndham Farms for the same thing. So we do have a real concern about the damage that's doing to Stearns Lake and the silting into the lake, as well as the precedent you would be setting by subdividing those lots. There's most of us in there, when I count, I can count probably 3 people's lots that because of where their house sits on the lot maybe can't be subdivided. But I know if the precedent's set and we do subdivide, we may be the first ones in here trying to ask to subdivide my upper pasture and sell off another 6 lots. And none of us want to do that. We all live there for a reason. So I'd ask you to just consider that. Thank you for your time.
I don't have any other comment cards.
Is there any other public comment? That's good because we're right at the time limit and I don't have to change protocol. Okay, with that, we'll now move back to the applicant having a chance to make a rebuttal. Before that, I think it's important to clarify a point, and maybe staff can help with this, regarding what we're deciding on today, and that is a specific variance to allow a septic system to encroach in the 75-foot impervious setback. If the lot were to be subdivided, we, as this board, are not making a subdivision decision, correct?
I will say you are definitely not making a subdivision decision. I don't know that the request is if it's subdivided, then they get a variance. That's the variance, and I don't have the actual application, but I imagine it is for a encroachment into the 75-foot setback. It may be specific to an exact location as to where that may be, but yeah, it's only with respect to allow encroachment into the 75-foot buffer. If it was worded broadly, it could be any portion of the 75-foot setback on the property. But
is the variance on this property the only thing preventing this property from being subdivided?
That is correct.
So if she may not be able to do it, but that doesn't mean that any of y'all could not still do it in the future without a variance.
There is no active covenant that would not allow someone to subdivide their property as long as they meet the zoning conditions, Ag 1 zoning, and the minor subdivision plat requirements. I guess technically they could go under a major subdivision requirements, but as long as they meet the requirements, then it would be. So technically, I could reduce the footprint of the house. There is, am I correct in saying this? There is no minimum square footage in ag zoning, so you could build a 200 square foot house, correct?
I think the building code requires a little bit more than that, but you're correct. The AG1 district has no minimum square footage for a house.
And there's also there's other Elgin systems and stuff like that you could possibly do.
There are
to stay out of the set.
The Fulton County's health department is historically known as the most restrictive. It's the largest population, or as far populous county, as far as what are called alternative systems, which is what you're speaking. They frown upon them greatly. The first step that we did is we went and met with the Fulton County Health Department, the applicant, and I to get an approval of this septic system in this area with, and like I say, their regulations state a 50-foot setback from stream banks or lake banks or anything like that. So just one reiteration, there was a lot of discussion from the neighbors, and I fully understand. So I was in their place. I would definitely have concerns. But we are not asking for any variance to the buffer. I heard the buffer stated, I think, in every individual's reasons for denial. We're outside the buffers with all of our everything shown on the site plan. Most of the time when we present, it's always site plan specific. Not to toot my own horn, but I'm going to toot my own horn. I feel like we turn in the most in-depth site plan. I know the Darby Road kind of had some clouded areas that said, we're going to put a septic system here. And I guess we all just accepted the fact that they're going to put it maybe in that clouded area. You see on our site plan, we have showed the exact field lines. They're dimensioned out. We're not trying. We live here, been here forever. We've owned property, a business. We are showing you exactly all the warts here that are on there. So that being said, it could be subdivided. We could come up with some other, a rendition that shrank the size of the house, say, well, we're only going to go 2 bedrooms, and then we'll throw ourselves at the mercy sometime in the future if we need a 3rd bedroom or something. But we wanted the neighborhood, everyone to see exactly what she's proposing. This is the footprint of the house, 3 bedrooms. She originally said she only needed 2, but her family said, you can't make decisions that you're never ever going to sell a house because, life changes. And if you're going to build a house, you need to at least build a 3 bedroom. So that's where we're at. Once again, I want to reiterate, we're not disturbing any buffers. That is about the impervious setback, and we're proposing the most pervious system in that. It is part of the Milton regs that the field lines are not to be placed in So that's why we're here with that, asking for the variance. But we feel like that since the permitting authority says that 50 feet is their controlling factor, that's the reason we're here. We feel like that we're not imposing or creating a situation that will create an environmental hazard, because that's, that is the guiding principle for septic systems in the state and the county at large, are the 50 feet setback. So I will try to answer any questions if you have them.
I left you with two sentiments. One was about the self-imposed
One is,
concern,
it is
and the other
absolutely
was the neighborhood impact.
Yes, the self-imposed. By dividing this property and trying to live in the neighborhood that she's lived in since 1992, she is creating the impact or the need for the variance. She is allowed to divide the property per code. So to, in fact, use her property that, as a taxpaying citizen, where she's allowed this opportunity to ask for the variance to do that. So we're there. If she's allowed to divide per every other situation in this one thing, then it is, I can't avoid that particular situation being a self-imposed. But I think there are extenuating circumstances to that. The second part was concerns about the environmental impact. Was that correct?
We heard environmental and just the neighborhood impact.
Just the neighborhood impact. In this particular case, with the size of the house, the location of the house being site plan specific, I would say I would expect that any approval or denial is based upon the site plan. So we're showing where it is, and there is no house. The neighbor's house sits much closer to the road. When you're driving by, I think you're going to have hardly any visual impact. That is the vision of the builder and the applicant as far as tucking this smaller footprint house in the woods and maintaining as much tree cover as possible, and in after construction, replacing or adding to the tree density to create. Her vision or goal that, and like I say, we've been working on this for over a year, is I want a house in the woods. I want to look out my house and see the wooded lot. So the impact, I feel like, would be slight to the neighborhood, and that effect. The fact that she's been a resident there since 1992 kind of also lends itself to that's not necessarily a negative impact that she would be staying in the neighborhood. So I hope I've attempted to answer your questions. But
I've got a question for you related to the swimming pool. Have you guys looked at if the swimming pool was eliminated, if you had enough?
I have, and I'm still going to be encroaching in. This is, again, you're dealing with someone's dream and all. And if I eliminate the pool, I do not eliminate the need for a variance.
Have you looked at moving the home forward on the site plan? I know it's just a preliminary plan, but
if you will, we're pretty well boxed in with the setbacks. We did the survey first, and created the building envelope, and then had the house sized to fit in there. So we really can't pull anything forward without getting into the impervious setback with an impervious structure. I know site plan, we have to put so much stuff on there, it's hard to see, but there's a 25-foot state buffer, a 50-foot buffer, and a 75-foot. And I don't know if it would help if I tried to expand this.
It looks like there's some.
The slopes are really steep right through there. It's right there at the corner.
Can you see on your screen? I'm trying to move the mouse along
Yes, we can see.
the 75-foot impervious setback. So the house is, it's close to that. So it comes to such a point there that we really can't push it forward. So we went in and, my original point, I was attempting to do this without any variance whatsoever. And then the septic system, when we met with the health department and went through sizing and everything, which the system is based upon the carrying capacity of the soils, which are inherent to the site. We can't change those. So whenever we do the testing, that's how the sizing, the linear feet of field line is based upon the permeability of the existing soils.
Any other questions for the applicant or staff?
I have questions. So I guess I'm a little concerned also with the other neighbors, and if this is approved, is this going to create sort of a difficult situation in the neighborhood? Or will the neighbors be accepting and supportive? There was one gentleman that mentioned that this would cause harm to the neighborhood. And I guess I would like further information how it would cause harm.
Hang on before we do that.
Okay.
No, I haven't closed public comment. You're fine. Sorry.
Okay.
There was a
Would you
question
mind
from a
addressing?
board member regarding someone who's concerned about this creating harm to their neighborhood. One of our considerations is relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good in surrounding properties. So that's, I think, what Brenda's trying to explore more. You care to elaborate? And if you do, can you come to the mic?
When I said I thought it would harden the neighborhood, I think it would decrease our property values because it would fundamentally change or substantially change the nature of our neighborhood. The attraction is the large acreage. If we start putting smaller lots in there, I think it's going to harm the neighborhood and the property values.
So we were talking about precedent and that this might set some sort of a precedent in your neighborhood. I think we heard, I wish I knew everybody's names, but we heard from the woman in pink about how if this happened, then she may be one of the first to come up and subdivide her 11 acres or so, or 20 acres. Is that a problem? I mean, if that big parcel of property was subdivided, do you think that would decrease the values in your neighborhood as well? You could fit several homes on that land.
And that's what I'm confused about, because it sounds to me like you already have the ability to do that. So this wouldn't be setting a precedence, because you can already do it if you want. The reason she can't do it is because of a septic issue, not because there's an ordinance against it.
Yeah, so it's less of a precedent, is more of a...
So there's not a precedent set,
Right.
correct?
And there's also the harm in locating a leach field.
Hang on, we can't hear, and nor can the public. For those of you who aren't aware, this is also broadcast live, and it's recorded.
Well, so that's one issue. And when I got up, I spoke about the water quality. But the staff report does, in addressing the harm issue, they talk about the potential to change the whole dynamic of the neighborhood. As I talked about, the city council has decided that we want to incentivize large lots. So the last thing you want to do is have a large lot existing subdivision like ours suddenly become a 1 acre lot subdivision. That's going in the opposite direction. But they also mention here, I think it's very important, in addition, the location of the leaching field lines may cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And that's what Jane Mandula was talking about with regard to the Stearns Lake. So it's not just, we do know that people could choose to legally subdivide. You can have by right. This one is not by right because she has to ask for the variance, and but that doesn't get away from the fact that there is a potential detrimental cause to the property related to actually the leach field. So there's two things. One is the changing the dynamic of the large lot neighborhood, but the other is the actually citing the leach field where it's proposed perhaps could cause substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties, which is from the staff memo.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Did Michelle talk about her hardship? Michelle, I know this is hard for you, but would you mind coming back up and addressing why this is a hardship for you? That's where I'm kind of having a challenge.
I think that, like Scott said, I'm not losing my house. I think the term hardship here is, yes, it's self-imposed because I am choosing to divide my lot. I think that in the context of that here is because he also said, I could build a 2,000 square foot house and I wouldn't be standing here having this conversation. I have a situation where I'm trying to stay in a neighborhood I love with an amazing lot that I will not find anywhere else to build the home that I want in the city that I want. And I can't do that. So the only option was to subdivide my lot, and like I said, if I do 3 bedrooms, I'm asking for a variance. So it is a hardship. It is a hardship. It's my land. It's my land. I could build a house on it, but I can't. I don't want to leave it. I don't want to stay in a 5,000 square foot house. Part of why I wanted to live in the woods is because I don't want to have an acre of landscaped yard to take care of. I don't want the maintenance, but I do want the natural. I want to be in nature. And so I can't have that. I'm in an apartment downtown right now and I love it, but it's not my neighborhood in the country. So it's a hardship because it's my property, but I can't build the home that I want on it.
Understand. Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant or staff before we move to closing the public comment? Okay. I think we're good. You feel like you've had enough time for rebuttals and closing comments?
I think that's where we're at. So
we're kind of past that, but if you feel you have the last thing to say.
Just as far as on the hardship, that it is, since she purchased the property, the rules that dictated her use of the property changed. So, in effect, that is a hardship that was not self-imposed. So, that being said, I feel like we have demonstrated legitimate reasons for you to give her approval on that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Reese. With that, I'll note that the public comment is closed, and I'll open the floor for a motion and a second. I'll make a motion for V19-004 to deny the request for septic system to encroach in the 75-foot impervious setback, and I'll hold my rationale for discussion, assuming we have a second.
Second.
So with a motion and a second, I would like to start the discussion. I am concerned that our 4 conditions are pretty clear, and the self-imposed nature of this situation is concerning. I also am concerned with the detriment to the public good and surrounding properties from this neighborhood is quite full of streams and resides on a lake, and that drives a lot of the uniqueness and the value of that neighborhood. I'm separating in my mind the subdividing aspect of this because that's not in our purview. But because of those 2 points, I'm struggling to see how it meets those considerations.
I think we also heard that if she could build a smaller home, that there wouldn't be the need for the variance. Is that correct?
We did hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Todd, and it really wasn't a demonstrated hardship. Came across as it was more self-imposed, that with the smaller footprint of the home or adjustments, that variance could be eliminated altogether, potentially, as well as with detriment to the public good and the surrounding properties. I think one of the other things that we're trying to do is make sure that we're protecting the stream buffers wherever possible, based on the regulations that are before us. And I think it's important for us to maintain that as well.
Any other discussion before we bring this to vote? Okay. All those in favor of denial, say aye.
Aye.
In opposition to deny, I didn't hear a vote from you.
No, I was going to oppose, actually.
You're opposing?
Yeah.
Okay, so the motion to deny carries with a 3-1 vote. Jason was in opposition. I will just note, these cases are as difficult for us as they are for you. Moving on to the next item on our agenda is any considerations of appeals or secondary variances. Staff, do we have any appeals or secondary variances? Okay, none. Any old business?
No old business.
None. New business, as you'll remember, we did strike the election of the chair and vice chair to the next scheduled meeting, but we do have a calendar to approve for 2019. I did propose a calendar. I know it was back in December that was proposed. And I believe there was one change in can staff remind me? Or was it just always the third Tuesday?
Oh, we won't change the time or something. No.
No, I can't remember if we had a conflict with Thanksgiving again. So before we adopt the calendar, let's just make sure of that.
They're just going to check on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, just
Do you know when Thanksgiving falls this year? Is it the 27th of November?
I think it's towards the end.
Or 28th, rather?
Yeah, it's probably.
Okay, so our BZA would be on the 19th, which is the week prior.
Good.
Okay, so the proposal that we'll be voting on is the third Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So we'll be meeting.
Sorry, who made the motion?
Oh, who made the second?
Seconded.
Sorry.
I'll second.
Okay.
I made the motion, Jason
Okay.
made the second. We're voting third Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passed unanimous. Jason, would you like to handle item 11 on our agenda?
Is that the dismissal?
Adjourn.
No, it would be adjournment.
Adjourn, yeah. Yes, I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second. No discussion. All those in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.